The first thing Dr. Amélie Baudet noticed was the silence. It wasn't the absence of sound. Machines hummed softly in the lab, computers whispered in low electric tones, and somewhere down the corridor a door clicked shut, but a deeper kind of silence. The kind that settled when history held its breath. On her screen, a face was beginning to emerge. Not flesh, not skin, not anything alive. But something older. Something that had once been alive millions of years ago, under a sky that no longer existed. Amélie leaned closer, her eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of the monitor. Pixel by pixel, fragment by fragment, the past was being rebuilt. Careful with the alignment, she said quietly, almost as if afraid the fossil might hear her. Across the room, Daniel adjusted his posture, fingers hovering over the controls. "I'm compensating for the distortion here," he replied. "But the right zygomatic is still off by, maybe 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters matters," she said. It always did. The problem with faces. For decades, the fossil known as Littlefoot had been both a miracle and a frustration. Discovered deep within the Sterkfontein caves, the skeleton was astonishing in its completeness: arms, legs, spine, even delicate hand bones preserved through unimaginable stretches of time. It was, by nearly every measure, one of the most complete early hominin skeletons ever found. But the face. The face had always been wrong. Crushed. Warped. Twisted by geological pressure that had folded bone like soft clay and hardened it again into something unrecognizable. Traditional reconstruction methods, painstaking, delicate, often heroic, had failed to fully restore it. The fossil refused to give up its identity. Until now. Undoing millions of years. Amélie stepped back slightly, crossing her arms as the digital model rotated slowly on the screen. This wasn't just reconstruction. This was reversal. Millions of years ago, sediment had pressed down on the skull, shifting it, bending it, distorting its original form. What they were doing now was, in a sense, undoing time's violence, peeling back layers of pressure and error to reveal something closer to truth. The data they were working with had come from thousands of high-resolution scans, captured using synchrotron imaging so precise it could reveal microscopic structures within fossilized bone. Every ridge, every fracture, every subtle asymmetry was mapped. And now, they were rebuilding. "Try mirroring the left orbital margin," Amélie suggested. Daniel nodded, making the adjustment. The model flickered slightly, then stabilized. The eye socket shifted. Just a little. But enough. Amélie inhaled slowly. "There," she whispered. For the first time, the face began to look coherent. The ghost in the machine. Later that evening, the lab had emptied. Only Amélie remained, sitting alone with the reconstruction. Outside, the world continued, cars moving, people talking, lives unfolding, but inside the lab, time felt suspended. She rotated the model again. The face stared back, not truly, not consciously, but with a presence that was difficult to ignore. "Who were you?" she wondered. Not in the abstract sense scientists often used, reducing individuals to specimens and data points. But as a being. Did you walk upright with confidence, or cautiously, still adapting to a changing world? Did you live in a group? Did you recognize faces, other faces, like the one now emerging on her screen? Amélie shook her head slightly, grounding herself. This wasn't about imagination, it was about evidence. And evidence, finally, was becoming clearer. Reassembling the past. The next morning, the team gathered. Charts filled the walls. Measurements covered whiteboards. Screens displayed comparisons between Littlefoot and other known specimens, both fossilized and living. "We've completed the initial reconstruction," Amelie announced. "Now we treat it as data." That was the shift. For years, Littlefoot's face had been treated almost like an artifact to admire, something incomplete, frustratingly ambiguous. Now, it could be measured, quantified, analyzed. Reduced, in some ways, to numbers. But numbers could reveal patterns. And patterns could change everything. Daniel pulled up the measurement set. 9 linear metrics, he said. Facial height, width, orbital dimensions, nasal aperture, standard comparative framework. "And the morphometrics?" someone asked. "Running now," he replied. Amelie watched as the system processed the data, comparing the reconstructed face to others in their database. Living great apes. Other Australopithecus fossils. Points of similarity. Points of divergence. The machine worked silently. Then it stopped. An unexpected pattern. Daniel frowned. "That's not what I expected." Amelie stepped closer. "What is it?" He turned the screen toward her. A cluster diagram. Each point represented a specimen, grouped based on similarity in facial structure. Amelie scanned it quickly, her mind already anticipating the result. Littlefoot should cluster with South African specimens. It was older, yes, but geographically, that was the logical expectation. But that wasn't what the data showed. Littlefoot sat elsewhere. Closer to East African fossils. For a moment, no one spoke. "That can't be right," someone said. "It's the data," Daniel replied quietly. "We can rerun it, but—" "Rerun it," Amelie said. He did. Same result. The disruption. Amelie stared at the screen, her thoughts racing. "This doesn't make sense," she murmured. Or rather, it didn't fit the story they thought they knew. For years, the prevailing idea had been relatively straightforward: early hominins evolved in somewhat regionally distinct ways. South African fossils formed one pattern, East African fossils another. A gradual, branching progression. But this suggested something more complicated. More fluid. "Look at the orbital shape," Daniel said, zooming in. "And the overall facial architecture. It's not just one metric, it's consistent across multiple features." Amelie nodded slowly. Littlefoot, a fossil from South Africa, looked more like fossils from East Africa than like a younger specimen from its own region. Geography and morphology were misaligned. "This changes things," she said. Echoes across a continent. That afternoon, Amelie sat alone again, reviewing the results. She replayed the reconstruction process in her mind, searching for errors. Misalignments. Bias. But everything held. The methods were sound. The data was consistent. Which meant one thing. The past was more complicated than they had imagined. She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly. What if populations weren't as isolated as they had assumed? What if there had been movement, migration, interaction, exchange, across vast distances, long before such behavior was expected? Or what if evolution itself had taken different paths in different places, producing unexpected similarities and divergences. Her thoughts drifted back to the face on the screen. Littlefoot. Not just a fossil, but a connection. A bridge between regions, between lineages, between stories that no longer fit neatly together. A new question. When the team reconvened, the energy in the room had shifted. There was excitement, yes, but also something deeper. Uncertainty. The pattern is unexpected, Amelie said, addressing them. Given the geographic origin of the specimen, we would not predict this level of similarity with East African fossils. So what does it mean? Daniel asked. Amelie paused. That's the question. She gestured to the screen. One possibility is that Littlefoot represents a lineage more closely connected to East African populations than we thought. And the alternative, someone asked. That later South African hominins developed more distinct facial features, she said. Diverging from earlier forms due to local evolutionary pressures. Silence settled again. Not confusion this time, but realization. They weren't just reconstructing a face. They were unraveling a story. The weight of discovery. That night, Amelie returned to the lab one last time. The reconstructed face waited on the screen. Complete, or as complete as it could ever be. She studied it quietly. There was something humbling about it. Millions of years ago, this individual had lived, moved, seen the world through those eye sockets now reconstructed in digital space. And now, across an unimaginable gulf of time, their face was being seen again. Not perfectly. Not fully. But enough. Who were you? She whispered. The face, of course, did not answer. But in its silence, it offered something else. A challenge. To rethink. To question. To look beyond simple stories and easy explanations. Because the past, like the face before her, was never as straightforward as it first appeared.